2023-2025 regular meeting of the Big Bear Area Regional Wastewater Agency is called to order at 5 p.m. And I'd like to ask Director Herrick to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Do it again. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, roll call please.
Director Herrick,
Aye.
Director Miller,
Aye.
Director Russo,
Aye.
Vice Chair Walsh,
Aye.
and Chair Segovia.
Aye. Okay, we'll move into our public forum. Public testimony is permitted at this time on the following sections of the agenda: presentation and introduction, information/committee reports, consent calendar, and any other matters within the agency's subject matter jurisdiction that are not included on the posted agenda. Okay, do we have any speaker cards?
Dan?
I guess we do. In person. Again. Then we'll do the other. 5 minutes.
3.
3.
Thank you, guys. Once again, coming from our great Big Bear Lake. Now, we have, our new planning committee guy, chair. After Jeff got, pretty much walked out of the building. Just amazing. So now 20% are people. Almost 20%. Had to leave other cities. Los Angeles. Michael LeGrande was head planning committee there. So they got the largest fine in California history. What he was doing. But we hired him. Out of the goodness of his heart, he came to Big Bear to help us. Same with our city manager. He didn't quite get walked out of San Clemente, but he was told to either leave immediately or there was going to be public hearings and big problems for him. The same type of thing that's going on now. But sometimes our people just don't listen. So I have complaint forms from the grand jury. So if anybody needs any complaint forms, I've got them available. They have to listen to your case. And they usually have to respond to it. They even did one on potholes, and you know what, thank God. The state actually was working on this street over there. A big boulevard. And went from a 0-star street to now it's a 1-star street. Still like going four-wheeling. So I guess the only other thing I have to say is that last August, you guys had what equipment you were going to use, and now you're getting prices. I haven't heard what equipment you settled on, how much of the building is going to be redone. And I'll be looking into that for this bid you have that didn't seem to have very much information this last summer. There were 4 attorneys here sitting along the desk. But what, we only have 1 today? Darn it. Thank you.
Thank you. No other cards?
No.
Great. We'll move on to presentation and introduction. David?
Yes.
So, Chris Santillan, actually, just completed his 10th year with the agency. He's a valuable part of our team, but unfortunately, his son has a baseball game today, so he could not make it. We would just like to congratulate, Chris on his 10-year service to our agency. So we'll make sure he gets his pin. There we go. And then the next one is actually gonna be Christine.
Thank you, David. We are proud to announce that the agency has been awarded the Certificate of Achievement of Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA, for the annual comprehensive financial report for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024. This is the 13th consecutive year the agency has received this award, which is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting. We're very proud of that.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Right, item number 6, information and committee reports, general managers report.
And I just wanted to kind of point out a couple of things about the general manager report. The staff replacement project was started on Monday, April 21st. They have 30 days to complete the project, and they're underway. They have a aggressive schedule that they'd like to complete it short, for the next week or so, but we'll see what happens.
Got a new schedule today.
Okay, figured out. You got a new schedule, right? I thought that was really aggressive. Anyways, and then the other thing I wanted to point out is, if you look at the, page, 2 of the report, you'll find that the member agencies, the percentage flow from the member agencies has changed sharply in February and March. As weather affected the I&I issue, and obviously, we had a lot of people come up, because it was the, first major snowstorm they saw up in the valley, so you can see that the city saw quite a bit more flow coming from their area. So that concludes my presentation on 6A, and I'm open for any questions.
Questions, anybody? Seeing none?
All right. So we'll move on to 6B. And the only thing I wanted to highlight on 6B, you'll see little asterisks in 6B. The asterisks indicate new information. We wanted to make sure that we stay consistent, providing the same information each time, but if you do see an asterisk next to an item, so you'll see underneath the environmental consideration, there's an asterisk on the second, the first paragraph basically down there. Those indicate new information, so that's the kind of stuff that if you've already read it, you want to pay attention to those asterisks marks in the report. And I'm available for any questions with regard to current speaker.
I do like the aspects, I have to say. It's nice to be able to just hone in on new information. Anybody? All right. Move along to the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar will be enacted by one motion at the appropriate time. There will be no separate discussion on these items. If a detailed discussion is necessary, any governing board member may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Does anybody want to remove any items from the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, I'd like a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion.
Perfect.
Okay, roll call please.
Director Harris, Director Miller,
Aye.
Director Russo,
Aye.
Vice Chair Walsh,
Aye.
and Chair Segovia.
Aye. Okay, we have no old business, so new business. Discussion action items, a pay schedule.
Yes, actually, this is going to be Sonia. Sonia, take it away.
The agency incorporated a 2.6% cost of living adjustment and to the fiscal year 2026 budget. This is based on the 2024 annual average change in CPI, regional CPI. The attached pay schedule reflects the adjustment in pay ranges resulting from the COLA. The governing board, upon governing board approval, the COLA and the new pay schedule will be effective July 12th, which is the first day of the first full pay period in July. Funds have been appropriated in the budget. Budget?
Anybody on the board have any questions? No, okay, public comment? No, okay. Can I please have a motion and a second? To approve 10A,
No motion to approve.
a second,
A second.
okay, roll call please.
Director Harris,
Aye.
Director Miller,
Aye.
Director Russo,
Aye.
Vice Chair Walsh,
Aye.
Chair Segovia.
Aye. Okay, item 10B,
10B, this was a issue or a request, for additional information brought, forward by, Director Miller, back in February. And, BB&K actually, did a whole analysis on what it would take for, our agency to become a, CSD. And Ward Simmons is here to present that information to you. So please feel free to ask him or I any questions.
Good evening, directors. Ward Simmons with Best Western Traders. The question we were presented with is, well, theoretically, if we were to convert the joint powers agreement into a CSD, how would that work? And so we put together a memo that's in your packet on how to form a CSD. It's pretty straightforward. It's really the easier part of the discussion. I'm not going to go through detail because it's all laid out in the memo, but I could just do a flyover. We could start with a probably most likely a resolution from one of the member agencies like the county, the city, or the CSD to form a CSD. And then it would go into an application process with LAFCO, Conversion County LAFCO, if they're in sort of putting together or at least approving the formation of new districts. So there would be an application process. They would then process that application, set a hearing. If they get past the hearing to approve it, then there would be another second hearing, a protest hearing. And then if it gets past the protest hearing, it would then go out for a vote for the people in the valley to vote on whether or not to go ahead and form a CSD. So there would have to be an election. There would then have to be, either at the same time or maybe a second election to appoint or to elect the new directors to the board of a CSD are elected. So they would have to elect those new board members. We estimate the time process would probably be about 12 to 24 months. And when it comes to costs, we put together a schedule there on the page 6 of the memo, listing out several costs. Those all add up to around $46,000 to $56,000. That doesn't include the elections. If we had to include the elections in there, then on top of that $46,000 to $56,000, we're talking a minimum rough estimate of $40,000 possibly if it happens during a presidential election year, maybe as high as $250,000 if it's a special election. So very expensive if it's a special election. One of the main differences is that right now the BARBA collects its revenue from 3 customers, the member agencies. Probably the CSD would have to collect its revenue from each one of the customers individually, from maybe through the property taxes. Other wastewater agencies collect through the property taxes. So that's probably a major change. The harder part would be, LAFCO is set up, joint powers agreements are not under the jurisdiction of LAFCO. So if you were converting from, say, you were a park district and wanted to convert into a community service district, LAFCO could put together conditions where it would say, the board of the park district now becomes board of the CSD. The revenue of the park district becomes the revenue of the CSD. They could just do a simple conversion and give all the assets from the park district into the CSD. With Barwa, you've got joint powers agreements, you've got operating agreements. All those things are not within the jurisdiction of LAFCO. So outside of the LAFCO process, you would have to additionally, the new CSD with the old JPA would have to get together and figure out how to convert, you know, all of the operating agreements and the assets and give that over to the CSD. Maybe that could be handled through LAFCO, I don't know. That's the part where it's still kind of fuzzy how that would take place, but it is an extra complication of being a joint powers agreement. That authority that you would need to work with LAFCO possibly to see how that would work. So that's the flyover. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them to the extent that I know. I think for some possible next steps, you might try some, if you were interested in investigating this further, you might want to have a discussion with the San Bernardino County LAFCO to see how they think a process like this would play out. Another possibility is to poll the member agencies to see if they're all on board, because it would take a lot of cooperation. Or you could just receive and file. Any questions?
Yeah, I had one question, or a couple of questions. One is, it says you can either form by district or at large. But I thought there was a lot of litigation involving political small political entities like cities, in which they're being sued by that attorney in Malibu.
That's
Say
right.
this unfair representation by having that.
Probably would want to recommend that you would do it at large.
So be it.
There has been, that is, we're just laying down what the law says, but there has been litigation on that issue that at large, that have, there've been a lot of, it hasn't happened so much in the last year or two, but before, you know, around the time of COVID, before, there was a lot of litigation of converting at large elections into divisions.
So special districts that are subject to the same
That's right.
as cities were subject to that, so
Yeah.
they're subject to, okay. Would you explain again real quick, because I lost you on the voting part. It said you had, in terms of providing a resolution, then is it a 218 vote after that, or what?
No, so the voting would be that's part of the LAFCO process. Once it goes through LAFCO, it makes it through all the hearings. LAFCO would have to put it out to a vote, just to see if it's subject to a vote. The citizens of the valley would have to vote for the CSD to come into formation.
It does, okay.
Yes,
That's a super majority, correct?
I think it's just a simple majority.
So is that handled to a general? It'd probably be handled to a general election. I mean, how is that handled, or by mail? How would they do that?
It would be either that would be the cheapest way to handle it. It would
Right.
be just put it on a 2026 or 2028 November ballot.
I think you answered the question already, because the process of changing over, especially I'll call it the billing to our member agencies. If it were to happen, make it through the election, that would not be an easy process either. Because, the CSD would then have to figure out how to bill each one of their customers separately, whether it's on a tax bill or not.
That would,
So it could be years, if it happens, it could be years and years down the road.
it would take, well, we're estimating 12 to 24, but that's a minimum.
For a full transition,
Yeah.
billing and everything.
I
It's not as bad as I thought.
I would guess that's a very minimum amount of time. It would probably even take longer than that.
You would have to probably not only form the district, then say we're going out to a vote, and then also probably approve rates. Like right there, because otherwise you wouldn't have any funding, I guess. So it would be very interesting process.
Yeah, we would have to do that. Those things would have to be worked out. This is a general flyover of how to form a CSD. There's going to be a lot of details that will come up.
Would you then vote for the board members of that CSD at the same time as being voted on?
Yeah, I would think so. You would need to. If the CSD is formed, then it would need to be populated immediately with the new board of directors.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I have one more comment. I've been involved in the. Fortunately, unfortunately, with the annexation in the city that I worked for previously, which sounds a lot like this. In terms of figuring out the tax rules and how that will all work. But it is done, I mean, it's done on a routine basis in California. Every year, every election. I guess I just have one comment, it just seems to me that if there's the political will out to do this, it would certainly go a long way in providing like a continuity with the board. And long term, and maybe resolve some of these issues that we hear from the general public about how some of these items are voted on. And that's just a comment.
Walsh, I don't know that this is a BB&K issue, but maybe Mr. Miller, in terms of, you brought it up, do you see an advantage to having a CSD instead of a PPA?
I think the issue is, for me, one of the issues that came up is that I represent 53B, and not the county as a whole. And a lot of times, people think that when I vote, I'm voting on behalf of that incorporated area in Sarasota County, and I'm not, I'm voting for the 53B. If you were to form the CSD, form a CSD, then I think you'd have clear understanding of what areas and who the persons on the board would be representing. I think the second thing in forming a special district is that, it does give us the opportunity to take any item that we want to public vote. Which is the issue, one of the major issues that we've had on how we go through the approval process of new Wastewater.
So you don't necessarily see a financial benefit, that it would cost less to operate?
I think it's, other than the initial transition period, which seems could be fairly expensive, but other than that, I don't see an operational issue at all.
Okay. And then it probably would be a BB&K question. If there has to be some negotiating on how you get from the current JPA to a CSD, then wouldn't you have to have both boards existing simultaneously?
I would think they would overlap, yes, temporarily. There would be some negotiations going on between the JPA and the new CSD.
So it would increase the cost of operation at least temporarily while they hash out.
During the overlap period.
And then you might have to have different legal representation between the CSD and the JPA. Well, they have.
There's a lot of details that would have to be worked out. Yeah, it's some things that, we haven't even thought of would creep up, I'm sure, but that sounds reasonable that they would have two different legal representations.
Okay, thank you.
For myself, in fact, I was kind of going over it a little bit with David before the meeting started. It sounds very complicated and expensive. And I don't see that we're, with the exception of potentially Replenish Big Bear, going to a vote. I think otherwise things are running fine. The other thing that I see is it's difficult to get people to want to run for offices, and now we'd be creating like 5 more offices. So at least, you have board members and trying to, like I was telling David, like sewage isn't sexy. So, it might be difficult to get people that would want to run for this office. So that's my 2 cents.
John's in, I can tell.
No, I'm good. So are we gonna have a t-shirt for that?
Sewer isn't sexy? Sure.
You can do that? Okay.
No, it's not.
It's just a matter of opinion, though.
Yeah.
True enough. Yeah.
After 32 years, you kind of get used to it.
So at this point, are we looking to receive and file this information?
Yes, at least,
Yes.
but I'd like to take it back to the city council. And present the thought to the city council.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because it would have to be driven from that. From that board anyways.
It would have to be-
Supported, heavily supported.
Either the city council, the county of San Bernardino, or the CSD board, any three of them could put together a resolution to put this into play. But,
I was just like to get full
yeah,
city councils.
sure, definitely, I mean, happy to provide, the city with the information that BB&K put together, and I'm sure, John or Eric will work out the details on presenting that to the council for consideration.
And was I told, do all three agencies have to agree to it?
I don't, I would imagine eventually you would have to get to a point where all three agencies agree to it, because there is a bunch of like assets and liabilities, right? So I would imagine, and coordination that would have to take place, and, you know, until a new board was set, the existing board would have to sit. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff, so I would imagine there would be a lot of coordination and cooperation required overall. But I think it would just take one of the app to actually start the process. I think it would just take one of the JPA members to actually start the action.
But would it not then also be a case of, if say the city wanted to do a CSD and the other three voters chose not to, would that kill it right then and there?
I think it would go a long ways towards killing it, certainly. I mean, I think you would need to have cooperation, otherwise you'd end up possibly litigation.
Conversely then, if the county rep decided the CSD was a good idea, could that one vote force the issue as opposed to the other four votes on the current board?
I mean, I don't think technically it wouldn't prevent the others from moving forward, but it would, again, it's like moving upstream. It would be a much more difficult process if the players weren't cooperating.
And by chance, have you already discussed this with, Supervisor?
I discussed it with you.
Okay.
So we'll take it to city council and move from there. Oh, I'm sorry, public comment.
Okay, I thought you were gonna turn.
You were hoping.
Skip me.
Oh, sorry, I would never do that.
Let me get my fine talking points here. I'll bring the card up to you. Okay, for one thing, the hospital. That election is gonna be in June. They're gonna do it by mail. And it is a lot cheaper. If you do it by mail. So that's coming up because they had to. Because Mr. JK got another win on the lawsuits. And I'm trying to explain to the hospital, just do it legally. They have a bunch of lawyers too. It's like, I'm wondering what kind of advice they're getting. Because they can't even get a simple ballot through. So if you vote for it, the property tax goes up $45. If it loses, it goes to 20. So one way or another, it's a win. And I'm working on trying to get transparency from them on how much money is being fleeced out of this valley. And they should be open about it because first of all, it's a federal thing and it's interstate. Next, you know what? DVES is going up 23%. And so I just got my electric bill. It was just a touch under $700. And I've heard rumors that it might go up again. Everybody just seems to want to add it to your property tax. You know, it's like, what's wrong? And now our trash, which is, it's full, what they're trying to do. Raise that on your property tax when nobody's doing any investigation on it. It's unreal. Like the city of Los Angeles, they have a whole department now on investigations because, yes, it is bigger and they have a lot of criminals there. So I think some of these things should be looked at because everybody I hear just wants to keep adding to the property tax, the fire. You know, the CSD and you know, they buy a $2 million fire truck and lo and behold, they're $2 million short. And I think that you guys should pay for it over there. Take over the whole thing. I mean, what kind of deal is this? Another, you know, part of the poor part of town getting screwed again? So I just want people to be leery of some of these things. Come in.
Thank you, Dan.
So is it just the city that's gonna take it back to their board, or is CSD and the county also need additional information from staff?
We would also as well. CSD would also take it back to the full board, our full board. Did you talk to Forbes?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
certainly if that's the direction that we're going, then we'll definitely have that discussion in supervisor round.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, so we're done with that. Item number 11, comments and announcements. General manager comments.
I have none.
All right, governing board member comments. No? Okay, none. We will be convening this meeting at 5:32 and going into closed session. Where we will have conference with legal counsel, anticipated legal litigation, and public employee and performance evaluation. And the governing board will enter closed session at now still 5:32. Okay, reopening the meeting of whatever the date is, the 23rd, from our closed session. And there is no reportable action.
We're recording this.
Meeting adjourned at 8 p.m.
Thanks, everyone. Thank
Yep.
you.